The sky was overcast, almost like it was mourning along with everyone gathered for Hannah's funeral. The air was heavy with silence. Some people clutched handkerchiefs, others held back tears, all lost in bittersweet memories of her. Then, out of nowhere, a loud barking shattered the quiet. It was Duke, Hannah's faithful dog, the one who'd never left her side. He stood firm, barking at the casket with growing intensity. People looked around, confused and uneasy. Whispers floated through the air. What was he seeing? Duke wasn't just barking. He was trying to say something. Everyone knew how smart he was. Some kids started to shiver, remembering old stories about how dogs could sense things people couldn't. Still, Duke wouldn't stop. His eyes stayed locked on the casket, his posture stiff with purpose. Father Michael, standing nearby, noticed all eyes on him. He tried to calm things down, but even he seemed rattled. He forced a smile and said it was just a dog, but his nervous glances and sweaty brow told another story. He didn't even want to look at the casket, like he was scared of what he might find. Then came David, a quiet stranger in the village, someone who barely knew Hannah but felt deeply drawn to her memory. He had a knack for noticing things others missed. Watching Duke, David felt something was off. He slowly walked over, knelt beside the dog, and spoke gently. Duke paused, his eyes meeting David's with a mix of fear and hope. It was like he was begging for someone to understand. David turned to the casket, following the dog's gaze. A chill crawled up his spine. Around them, the room buzzed with quiet whispers as people in the church began to whisper, confused and intrigued. "Leave the dog alone," one of the men said, trying to stop the moment. But David shook his head gently. "I think Duke is trying to tell us something," he replied, eyes still fixed on the casket. "And maybe we should listen." Without waiting, David stepped closer to Duke and spoke softly. "Come on, boy, show me what's wrong." Duke wagged his tail just a little, like he understood David was there to help. Then, without barking, Duke began sniffing the floor, moving slowly toward the casket, as if leading David to something only he could sense. As they approached, quiet murmurs rose among the crowd. People started whispering old stories about animals having a sixth sense, how dogs could feel things long before people did. Duke's strange behavior made everyone uneasy, and David quietly suggested maybe the dog was picking up something the rest of them couldn't see. The air in the church grew heavier with every step they took. Was Duke seeing something supernatural, or was there more to Hannah's death than anyone knew? Father Michael, visibly uncomfortable, stepped forward and tried to regain control. He took a deep breath, adjusted his robe and raised his hands. "Please, everyone, calm down," he said. His voice was meant to sound firm, but it wavered just a bit. "We are here to honor Hannah, someone we all loved." He looked hard at David and continued in a louder voice. "This is not the time for disruptions. It's disrespectful to cause confusion at such a delicate moment." Some people nodded, but others looked at the priest with suspicion. Why was he so nervous? Why was he in such a rush to end this? Pointing at David, the priest said more harshly, "What you're doing is disrespectful to Hannah. Leave the dog alone, stop this nonsense." David didn't move. Something about the priest's insistence felt off. Too urgent, too defensive. Beside him, Duke let out a low growl, as if he could sense the same thing. The priest, now clearly flustered, almost pleaded, "Please don't let this take away from Hannah's memory. Let us pray for her peace." But that peace felt farther and farther away. His words were caring, but his sweat and trembling hands said otherwise. The room fell into a thick silence, everyone waiting to see what would happen next. Then David, sensing the priest's fear and everyone's silent questions, finally asked the one thing no one dared say aloud. With a firm voice, eyes locked on Father Michael, he asked, "Father, how exactly did Hannah die?" Gasps and whispers spread like wildfire through the church. The priest froze, his eyes widened. He had told everyone Hannah died peacefully in her sleep. "What do you mean?" he said, now sounding defensive. "I found her myself. She was in her bed. She died peacefully." He repeated it like he was trying to believe it himself. But David stepped closer. "Why was she alone?" he asked. "And why were you the one who found her first?" Doesn't that strike you as odd? The murmuring grew louder. Some people began glancing at each other, unsettled. Children watched in silence, sensing something was wrong, even if they didn't fully understand. Father Michael's face flushed red. His jaw tightened. With a stomp of his foot, he yelled, "This is absurd! You're ruining this sacred moment and disrespecting Hannah's memory." Pointing at David, he shouted, "Leave! You and that dog! Get out of here!" Though his voice boomed, his words shook with panic. David hesitated, but then Duke barked, loud, clear, as if telling him to keep going, not to back down. And that's when David knew. He had touched something real, something the priest clearly didn't want anyone to uncover. David knew deep down he didn't have a choice. With one last look at Father Michael, he took Duke by the collar and quietly walked toward the church doors. Behind him, the whispers and glances of the townspeople followed, puzzled by what had just happened. But David couldn't walk away and forget it. Something about Hannah's death didn't sit right, and a deep gut feeling told him there was more to uncover. Duke wagged his tail, almost like he was in on the plan. "Come on, buddy," David whispered. "We've got a lot to find out." They started through the cemetery, weaving between old gravestones as the wind rustled the trees, making the leaves whisper like voices from the past. David's instincts told him this quiet place held secrets. Duke seemed to feel it too, nose to the ground, pulling David forward like he knew exactly where to go. Their first stop was Hannah's house, a little stone cottage at the edge of the woods, its garden overgrown and forgotten. The front door was unlocked, odd, like someone had left in a hurry. Inside, dust covered everything, but certain objects looked like they'd been moved recently. That was enough to make David's skin crawl. With Duke sniffing at his heels, David began searching the house. In one old wooden box, he found letters and photographs, their yellowed paper full of memories and hidden truths. The letters revealed something big. Hannah had been meeting secretly with people from outside the village, but one letter stood out most. It was written by Hannah herself, and it mentioned Father Michael. What she'd discovered about him sounded serious enough to scare her. David and Duke locked eyes. The dog seemed uneasy, like he sensed they were on the verge of something important. Still digging for answers, David spotted a key taped behind a photo frame. "What do you open?" he muttered. Duke gave a sharp bark like a cheer to keep going. Next to the key was a photo of Hannah standing beside Father Michael, the church behind them. But David noticed something strange, a small metal box near their feet. It looked just like the one Hannah had written about, the one she claimed the priest used to hide money. "We're onto something," David whispered, giving Duke a pat. If Hannah was trying to warn them about the priest, this key might unlock the truth. With a new sense of purpose, David pocketed the key and set off for the village center with Duke by his side. Everything seemed calm, but beneath the surface, David could feel it. Something dark was hiding in that peace. He needed to learn what Hannah knew, and fast. He headed to the town library, an old place lined with dusty shelves and fading records. As he searched through photos and town documents, one album caught his eye. It was full of pictures from village events and religious festivals. Then he saw her, Hannah. In one photo, she stood beside Father Michael, but her face didn't show joy. Instead, it held a look of fear, like she knew something terrible. And there it was again in the corner of the photo, the same small metal box. Now determined more than ever, David went back to Hannah's house. He felt like the answers were there, waiting to be found. And behind a curtain he discovered a hidden cabinet. Inside it he found a notebook, Hannah's diary. Its pages were filled with notes that looked incredibly important. David read them quickly, his heart pounding, with Duke right beside him, as if even the dog could feel the storm that was coming. The pages of Hannah's diary revealed a heartbreaking truth. She had uncovered something deeply wrong. Father Michael had been stealing money from the church and using people's trust to hide his crimes. David read her words with a pounding heart. "He's stealing from everyone," she had written. It wasn't just betrayal, it was something far more serious. Tucked between the pages, David found an envelope filled with photos. In them, Father Michael stood in shadowy corners of the church, always near the same small metal box. One photo showed him standing beside an old statue, placing the box beneath it. A chill swept through David. She knew everything, he whispered to Duke. That's why she was in danger. Now more than ever, David knew he had to find that box. With Duke at his side, tail wagging as if ready for whatever came next, David felt a new sense of purpose. Holding Hannah's diary in his hands, he felt the weight of her courage and the importance of finishing what she started. Every word was like a stone added to the load on his shoulders, but he was ready. The quiet village streets seemed even more still as he returned to the church. Its doors were slightly ajar. Inside, the place was cold and quiet, as though it were holding its breath. David stepped in carefully, retracing the steps he had seen. In the photos, he approached the statue, the one tucked in the corner, with its solemn stone face watching over the space. Kneeling, David searched the base. His fingers brushed against a hidden fabric. Gently lifting it, he found it, the metal box Hannah had written about. His hands shook as he held it. Duke looked at him, tail wagging, eyes full of understanding. They were getting close. David opened the box slowly. Inside were bundles of money, each labeled with the names of people's donations. And beneath that, something even more curious, a small key and a folded yellowed piece of paper. He opened the paper. It was a map. In the center, a red circle marked a place labeled church storage. His heart quickened. This was it. This had to be where Hannah had found something that scared her so deeply. Holding the key tight, he turned to Duke and said, "Let's go, boy. We need to find that storage." They followed the map to a door hidden behind the altar, a door David had never seen before. The air there felt heavy, like it held secrets no one wanted revealed. He slipped the key into the lock, took a deep breath and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. With his flashlight flickering, David stepped down, Duke close behind, both alert to every sound. At the bottom, a damp corridor stretched out before them. Shadows danced on the stone walls, and then David heard it. Chains, faint but unmistakable. "Hannah," he called, his voice barely above a whisper. Only silence answered, his own voice echoing in the empty space. At the end of the hall, a single light bulb swung above a doorway, casting a pale glow on the room ahead. They were closer than ever to uncovering the truth. David's heart nearly burst when he saw her. Hannah, pale but alive, chained to a chair. "Hannah," he cried, filled with relief. Her voice, weak but steady, answered back, "David." But before he could run to her, a loud noise stopped him in his tracks. Father Michael stood behind him, gripping a wooden plank, his eyes full of fury. "You shouldn't be here," the priest shouted. "I told you you'd never find her." In a flash, Father Michael lunged at David. The plank grazed David as he fell to the ground, stunned, not just by the pain, but by the heartbreak. How could a priest, someone meant to bring peace and comfort, become this angry, violent man? Just when it seemed the priest would strike again, Duke sprang into action. Without hesitation, the loyal dog lunged at Father Michael, biting down hard on his leg. The priest screamed in pain, the sound echoing through the basement. Duke didn't let go. He was determined to protect David no matter what. As Father Michael stumbled and tried to run, David jumped to his feet and chased after him. The truth needed to come out, no matter what. They burst onto the street where curious villagers were already gathering. People gasped, seeing their trusted priest locked in a struggle with David, while Duke kept him from escaping. David raised his voice. "Everyone stop. You need to hear what really happened." He laid it all out. The stolen money, the hidden box, the kidnapping and the lies. Shock and heartbreak rippled through the crowd as they listened. No one wanted to believe it, but they couldn't ignore the truth anymore. As villagers moved in to restrain Father Michael, David led them back to the church. There, with trembling hands, he opened the metal box. Inside were bundles of money labeled as donations, and a map showing the secret storage where Hannah had been held. Everything was there. The truth was no longer hidden. They followed David to the storage room. Hannah, still shaken, was waiting. She was finally free. Seeing her safe again, David's heart swelled. And Duke, sensing his job was done, wagged his tail proudly. He had protected the people he loved. But just when it seemed over, Father Michael broke free. In one last act of hate, he grabbed a wooden plank and rushed at David. "You don't understand." "Anything!" the priest screamed, eyes wild. David froze for a moment, unable to believe what he was seeing. But before the priest could strike, Duke jumped once again, biting down with fierce loyalty. The priest screamed and hit the ground. David leapt in to help, and the two struggled. Father Michael broke free again and ran, but Duke chased after him. In the town square, surrounded by neighbors, Duke tackled him to the ground one final time. Everyone stood in stunned silence. The priest, who had once stood at the heart of their village, now exposed, humbled, and caught. David stepped forward and, still catching his breath, told them everything Hannah had found. Every painful truth. And as he spoke, the village listened. Hearts broken, but eyes finally open. David explained to the villagers that Hannah had discovered Father Michael was stealing donation money from the congregation and using it for something secret. He also revealed that the priest had arranged for Hannah to be kidnapped, so she couldn't tell anyone the truth. The villagers were stunned. Some helped hold Father Michael, while David, determined to prove everything, led them back to the church. There, David held the small metal box, feeling the heavy weight of both the money inside and the truth it carried. In front of everyone, he opened it. Neatly stacked bills, labeled with the names of generous church members, filled the box. Murmurs of shock spread through the crowd as they saw proof of Father Michael's betrayal. Then David showed them the key he had found and explained it unlocked a secret room in the church. With the villagers following closely, he led them to that hidden storage space, and there they found Hannah. She was weak, still chained, but alive. A wave of relief and emotion washed over the crowd. Hannah could barely believe she was finally safe. Duke, ever loyal, ran straight to her, tail wagging with joy, as if he'd known all along this was their mission. The moment was tender, full of hope, love, and a quiet victory. Though Father Michael tried to defend himself, no one wanted to hear excuses anymore. The community, once so full of trust, saw the truth with their own eyes. The man they once followed in faith was no longer a leader, but someone who had deeply betrayed them. Thanks to David and Duke's bravery, justice had finally been served. Hannah, with gratitude in her eyes, thanked them both for risking everything to save her. Father Michael was taken away by the police, and the village, though shaken, began to rebuild, this time on a stronger foundation of truth and trust. The people stood together, determined to create a better place. David, who had given so much, chose to stay. He helped Hannah recover and became part of the community. His kindness and courage touched everyone's hearts, and Duke, he was the village's hero. Children gathered around him, adults gave him pats and praise, and everyone knew. Without Duke, the truth may have stayed buried. Together, the villagers, David and Duke, found a new beginning, one rooted in honesty, healing, and hope. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We put in a ton of effort to bring you amazing stories.